Alright, throughout the course of this video, we're going to look at the oak fire in Mariposa County. This started at about 2:30 today and then led to some rapid rate of spread. You can see even some pyrocumulonimbus development on this. Does look like things are at least calmer right now than they were earlier this afternoon, but certainly still seeing a lot of growth on this fire. So we're not only going to try to figure out where this fire is now, but we're also going to look at the fire weather forecast to forecast how this fire is expected to continue to spread in the future. But again, that was the shot that we were seeing earlier this afternoon. You notice where you see that white cloud punching through the inversion right there. That's where you get that pyrocumulonimbus. What that basically tells you is that there's just a lot of heat being generated on this fire. And if we look at this other angle of it, you can see some of the rapid rate of spread too. I was seeing some reports of spotting. That's where some burning embers are picked up in this fire, dropped ahead of the major blaze, and then it starts these new little flames that you can see right there. And that's where you do get some of that more rapid rate of spread. The other thing that I notice on this imagery right here, not only some of the steep terrain, it's not a big surprise that it moved quickly up this hill. Fire likes to move uphill like that. And then those winds, which look to be coming towards the camera, we're able to take some of those burning embers, drop them down, lead to some of that growth that you saw right there. Now, two other things that I notice on this imagery. One, how many fuels are in this area? It looks like there is a large amount of timber. Given that 97% of the state's in the severe drought category, a lot of that timber is going to be exceptionally dry. And then finally, I also notice how much this tree is moving on the bottom right of the camera. You'll be able to see it in just a second here. That tells you how strong the winds were today, and that, I think, was actually the biggest impact on this fire, were the strong winds. And I actually just noticed one other thing. You can see aircraft flying on this fire as well. Now, if we want to take the above view, this is one of the bigger fires that we've seen this entire season, just in terms of growth over a 24-hour span. And I would say it's the biggest pyrocumulonimbus that I've seen so far this season. You can even see that little white puff on the satellite imagery right there. Interesting that the winds aren't exactly uniform. Looks like some of that smoke is moving down to the south, some of it is moving up towards the north. So I imagine that did not make things easy on firefighters throughout the day today. But given that this is just the start of the fire, it's not easy to figure out where the most recent information is. There's not an official report on InciWeb yet or CAL FIRE. So we're just going to look at Watch Duty. This is another great app that has pretty much the entire timeline of this fire. It looks like at 2:37 p.m., that's where it was just that small, well, they call it a large column, but compared to what it turned into later, that was a very small column right there. So at about 2:30 this afternoon, by 2:40, it was about 10 to 15 acres, and then it quickly started growing. By 2:54, it's already at 75 acres. By 3 o'clock, we already have some evacuation orders in place. By 3:30, it's up to 150 acres, and you can just see how much more growth is happening on that fire. And that's another good view of some of the steep topography in this area and all of those fuels that we have. There's another shot right there. That's before we really start generating a lot of heat on this, before that pyrocumulonimbus comes up. Then it looks like the evacuation orders were expanded at about 4 p.m. I also put the link to the evacuation orders in the description of this video. Still seeing what I would call a moderate smoke plume right there by 4:20, and then by about 4:40, it looks like this thing really starts to kick up. That's where you start to see the top of that pyrocumulonimbus. And then hopefully we get another acreage in here at some point. Looks like at 4:42, that's where we're getting some reports of spotting up to 3/4 of a mile. That's where some of the big winds come into play with this one. We saw it on that live shot where you could see little fires starting out ahead of the major blaze. That was due to those strong winds picking up those burning embers, dropping them down. And then because of the rapid growth on the fire, not a big surprise that by 4:48, evacuation orders expanded again. Then it looks like we're seeing it by 5 o'clock, it's already at 1,300 acres. So that's very interesting to see. In just 2.5 hours, it grew over 1,000 acres. And then by 5:30, it's at 1,750. Highway 40 is closed. The other thing I'll point out about this, we'll be able to see it better on another map in a second, but it's in the general area of where we were just following the Washburn fire in Yosemite Valley. I believe the second cam that I showed, I didn't even have to reload my bookmarks bar because it was actually the exact same cam that I used for the Yosemite fire, or the Washburn fire in Yosemite Valley. So now we're going to see by 6 o'clock, that's where the fire activity is really picked up. It looks like at this point, spotting is as much as 1 to 2 miles ahead of the main fire. And it looks like that part is at least some good news. Looks by 6, it says slow rate of spread in the grass. Not sure what that means for the timber, though. But, yeah. Basically seeing reports of spotting, smoke coming up, evacuation orders continuing to expand again at 6:37. So that tells you that if that was all we knew about this fire, that would be enough to know. If you keep expanding your evacuation orders, it just tells you that the fire keeps growing and growing and growing. And our most recent updates, fire is now established on the south side of Triangle Road and across Snow Creek and is making a hard run towards the Dara Road area. And then most recently at 7, additional resources being sent into the Lush Meadows area with priority being life and structured defense. So what that means is right now they're not completely focused on stopping this fire. The main focus right now is on life and structure defense. That's what that means. And not a big surprise because of all those expansions in the evacuation orders, just how fast this is moving. 1,750 acres and 0% containment. Now, if we want to actually look at where this fire is, we can check out CalTopo. First thing that I'll say about this map before I zoom in is right now we don't have any, at least I couldn't find it, any infrared imagery on the Oak Fire. So we're just going off of the heat signatures, but the big disclaimer on this is this heat signature is being picked up by a satellite in space. It is by no means accurate. It just is it's useful to give us a general idea of where this fire is. Now, one piece of good news, you notice a lot of these boxes right here are yellow and orange. That is at least better than when I was looking at it earlier and it was that bright red color, which represents even more heat intensity being picked up on it. If you notice where those original hotspots were there with those red stars, it looks like most of the growth on this fire, at least according to the heat signatures, has been to the north, the east, and the south. And that actually matches up pretty well with our satellite imagery where we see that smoke going to the south, to the north, and then also to the east. So tells you how winds come into play with a fire. Whichever way your winds are blowing, that's where it's going to drop those burning embers. That's where you're going to get your spot fires. Now, before I click this next button, just want to remind you again, that's not showing you where the fire is right now. That's just a general idea of where the satellite is picking up some heat. This is where our structures are, though. So structures are those yellow dots right there. And that's, I think, why this is a concerning fire, is because we're seeing all of this growth. We're seeing the expansions in the evacuation orders. And we also have a large amount of structures in this area. I haven't actually seen a number on the amount of structures that are currently threatened, but hopefully that number does come out by tomorrow, and I'll be sure to update you guys on that once I do get that. And there's actually a chance it's on the CAL FIRE website right here. So it looks like that's a less recent number than what we have on Watch Duty. Watch Duty reporting at 1,750. Officially, though, CAL FIRE is still saying it's at 1,300. And looks like the cause is under investigation, 0% containment, and not seeing anything about the number of structures threatened just yet. One thing I do want to point out on this map, that's our Washburn fire right there. So you can see how close it is to the Oak Fire right now. And that's why we're able to use some of the same cams on this. So unfortunate time for this whole area right there, but it just tells you how dry a lot of these fuels are in this area, how warm it has been recently, and some of those gusty winds that we had throughout the day today. Now, I probably should have shown this first in the video, but this is the link that actually shows where the current evacuation orders are. Not sure when you'll be watching this video. If anything, maybe check my channel to see if I've done a more recent update from this video. But with that being said, I always just put the link for this into the description. Never look at this and think those are the current evacuation orders, especially with this fire, considering every hour they seem to keep being expanded. So just click the link for all those evacuation orders. But what I want to do next is take the lat long for this fire, put it into windy.com. We have to get rid of that bracket on it. And let's figure out the fire weather forecast for this fire. So first thing that I notice on this is that bright red color right here. I'm not sure if you can actually see these numbers, but we'll dive into the actual map in a second. But I do just want to point out that today we had very gusty winds right around 4 or 5 o'clock, with some of those gusts showing up as 30 miles per hour. Doesn't look like it's as windy tomorrow. Looks like we have that same westerly flow, but it's around 20 to 25 mile per hour gusts. And then on Sunday, it looks like it's 20 mile per hour gusts. So when it comes to winds, we're actually going to be improving compared with where we were throughout the day today. But if we actually want to zoom in and see, yeah, it looks like those winds will be coming from a westerly direction. Thing that I'm concerned about with this fire, tomorrow wind gusts not as bad as today, so not expecting as rapid of growth. Although that's also hard to say, because if it's a bigger fire, you can get more acres burned just in the nature that it is already bigger, so there's more room for growth. What I think is more concerning than the winds tomorrow is how warm the temperatures are, 94 degrees, which means your relative humidity, how dry the air is. Yeah, exceptionally dry out there, 9%. That's single digits. Just to put that in perspective, Washburn fire was fairly active, and the lowest relative humidity I saw on that was in the mid to high teens, but most of the time it was in the 20s and 30s. This is showing that with all that heat we have tomorrow, very dry conditions. The reason that's important is because the drier the air is, drier the fuels are going to be, and then the easier it is for that fire to spread. But more importantly on this one, the easier it is for those little burning embers to drop into some of that dry grass and then start a new little fire and lead to some rapid growth. So it looks like winds are improving tomorrow, but temperature and relative humidity tells me that we're still going to be seeing some active growth on this. So I'll definitely be doing another update tomorrow. And then if we just want to take a sneak peek at Sunday, dry conditions once again, temperatures just as warm, and then when it comes to those wind gusts, similar to what we'll be seeing tomorrow. So I think this will be a fire that we will be watching throughout this entire weekend. And again, I think the main thing that I'll say is to check that link in the description for the current evacuation orders. And sorry that there wasn't more information out there on this fire just yet, but I'll continue to put more information out there as I can find it. So hopefully this video is helpful, and thanks for watching.